beloved pawn shop family. Rick Harrison Jr. was born in Danville, Virginia, on March 4, renowned as the elderly gentleman from Pawn Stars. His family relocated to Lexington, North Carolina, when he was just 1 year old. Residence at 115 Peacock Avenue clearly indicated their working-class status. His father labored diligently to sustain the family as a welder and construction worker. Richard quickly realized that he needed to put in considerable effort to achieve financial stability. At the age of 14, he undertook a task that most adolescents would not even contemplate. He became a school bus driver. Each morning, he arose early to transport children to school. He parked the bus at his residence overnight and earned approximately $5 or $6 weekly using this method. Although it was little, his family genuinely valued it. He showed minimal interest in academia. He attended Lexington High School but withdrew during his junior year due to financial difficulties at home. It became evident that securing employment took precedence over completing education. His life underwent a rapid transformation at the age of 17. He encountered Joanne Rue at a barn dance, an evening that would alter the course of his entire existence. Simultaneously, he committed an act that could have resulted in his demise. He was apprehended for automobile theft and appeared before a judge, who informed him that he could either serve a prison sentence or enlist in the military. The decision was straightforward. In October 1958, he enlisted in the United States Navy, a decision that would change everything. He initially intended to serve for 4 years. However, circumstances did not unfold as anticipated. He wed Joanne following 2 years of duty, and shortly thereafter, their first child, Sherry, was born. She had Down syndrome and required costly medical care to ensure she received the necessary treatment. To support his family, Richard re-enlisted, extending his tenure in the Navy. Over the subsequent 2 decades, he served on 4 distinct vessels and ascended through the ranks to attain the position of first-class petty officer. He was required to perform tasks across the Pacific, serving on vessels such as the USS Oriskany and USS Twining. Subsequently, he became the commander of Tactical Air Control Squadron 21, overseeing all aerial operations. Between 1971 and 1975, he undertook his most extensive service aboard the USS Chuan Du. During that period, he was deployed to Vietnam multiple times and was awarded sea frequently stationed him away from home for extended periods. He spent about half of his career at sea, resulting in significant time lost with his family. In 1979, with 3 adolescent sons residing with him, he made a life-changing decision. He retired from the military after 2 decades of duty. Richard Harrison and his spouse Joanne traveled to San Diego with the objective of enhancing their lives. They exerted considerable effort to establish a real estate enterprise and, thereafter, inaugurate their own office. For a time, circumstances appeared favorable. However, following a period of success, things took a turn for the worse. As the economy collapsed in the early 1980s, mortgage rates surged to 18%, resulting in complications within the housing sector. The Harrisons had invested significantly in real estate, believing it would safeguard their future, but they lost about $1 million, and everything else. It may have shattered them, yet Harrison remained resolute. In subsequent years, he asserted that his tenure in the Navy instilled resilience and a strong work ethic in him. He was certain they needed to begin anew, even if it required leaving San Diego. In April 1981, they relocated. Optimistic maneuver. It was a desperate attempt. Although Las Vegas had not yet evolved into the bustling metropolis it would later become, Harrison envisioned its potential. He believed they might have a fresh start. He and his son Rick established a little second-hand store named Gold and Silver Coin Shop shortly after their arrival. Space measured about 300 square feet, insufficient for conducting commercial operations. Nonetheless, they set up their business on Las Vegas Boulevard, what would eventually become the world-famous Gold and Silver Pawn Shop and the legendary Pawn Stars legacy. Their business on Las Vegas Boulevard South endeavored to attract customers, but initially, their efforts were unsuccessful. Acquiring funds proved to be challenging. Rick operated the shop during the day and reclaimed vehicles at night to provide for his family. The Harrisons were determined to prevent the business from failing. Despite its challenging inception, they built a reputation for integrity and expertise over time. In 1986, the little business, however, Rick and his father had more ambitious ambitions. For years, obtaining pawn licenses in Las Vegas was exceedingly difficult. The city imposed stringent controls that restricted the number of issuances permitted. However, Rick remained vigilant. He monitored population growth frequently. In 1989, after years of determination, they ultimately acquired one of Las Vegas's coveted pawn licenses. The subsequent year, they inaugurated Gold and Silver Pawn Shop at 713 Las Vegas Boulevard South, merely 2 miles from the Strip. It was the appropriate location at the opportune moment. By 2015, the establishment was dispersing approximately $3 million annually and generating $700,000 in interest revenue. Business was prospering, although the journey to that success was arduous. The abundance of pawn shops in Las Vegas made it challenging to secure business. Numerous individuals perceived the market as dubious, populated with companies that exploited consumers. The Harrisons recognized the necessity of gaining public trust. Rick had extensively studied history and antiquities for years, and the shop improved due to his knowledge. He could perceive significant details that others overlooked. They distinguished themselves from other pawn shops by not exclusively trading in gold, jewelry, and electronics. Instead, they gained recognition for acquiring rare treasures and historical artifacts. Trust was equally as vital as maintaining inventory. Customers appreciated the Harrisons for their fairness, which fostered loyalty. The store gained prominence in Las Vegas during the early 2000s. Individuals who had financial losses at casinos frequently pawned their possessions to secure transportation home. Others visited to collect unusual items, while some were solely concerned with the types of treasures contained there. The shop's distinctive wares became increasingly unique over time. Roman coins, samurai swords, and Brock Williams' Super Bowl ring from the 2001 New England Patriots were available for purchase and sale. By 2010, the shop had transformed into a requisite destination for all. The store was frequented daily by numerous tourists and enthusiasts. They were compelled to continue expanding due to elevated demand. By October of that year, the business had expanded to exceed 15,000 square feet. An unusual event transpired at the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop in Las Vegas in 2003. In an episode of the late-night program Insomniac with Dave Attell, the establishment was featured. For numerous individuals, it was merely a brief article concerning an unusual enterprise. However, for Rick Harrison, it transcended that. He had spent years attempting to persuade television networks that a program centered on his pawn business would be advantageous. He believed that the distinctive items introduced and the daily negotiations would captivate a substantial audience. However, the individuals overseeing the networks held a differing perspective. Someone remarked that 4 overweight men in a pawn shop would not attract viewers. However, his performance on Insomniac demonstrated their error. Television directors expressed interest and considered it a viable concept for a program. They discovered that this establishment was not merely a pawn shop but a venue rich in history, intriguing artifacts, and resilient individuals. Rick, his father Richard, the old man, Harrison, his son Corey, and their long-standing associate Chumley were an enjoyable ensemble to spend time with. Tension prevailed, and everyone was well informed about rare things. It required several additional years for all elements to coalesce, but by 2008, the concept had materialized. The program would primarily focus on the shop's history, discussions, and the family's collaborative dynamics. Initially, that was its designation. The History Channel expressed interest, however, they disapproved of the name. Utilizing a clever pun, they rebranded it as Pawn Stars. The inaugural episode was broadcast on July 19, 2009. It emerged as the most viewed program on the History Channel within only 10 weeks. Jersey Shore was the sole reality television program in the nation with a larger viewership. The Gold and Silver Pawn Shop underwent irrevocable change following the rise to fame of Pawn Stars. Approximately 70 individuals attended the shop daily before the show. That figure had surged to over 1,000 by October 2010. Individuals traveled from various regions globally to visit the shop, engage with the cast, and potentially make a purchase. The show was broadcast worldwide, reaching over 150 countries and translated into 38 languages. Richard Harrison, commonly referred to as the Old Man, possessed one of the most distinctive appearances on the show. He was born in Danville, Virginia, on March 4, 1941. He served in the Navy for over 20 years prior to becoming a pawn shop proprietor. In 1989, he and Rick established the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop in Las Vegas. Richard was recognized for his candor. Even before the program, he was referred to as the Old Man. At the age of 38, due to his consistently solemn demeanor, he emerged as a beloved figure on screen. He was resilient, astute, and consistently willing to indicate when a bargain was unfavorable. He, Corey, and Chumlee frequently had divergent opinions regarding their actions, which contributed to the entertainment value of the show. He appeared irritable. However, he genuinely valued the business and its employees. Additionally, Richard had a profound affinity for vintage automobiles. He showcased numerous vehicles on the show throughout the years, but one distinguished itself: a 1966 Imperial Crown. His family presented him with a completely restored version of the car as a gift for their 50th wedding anniversary. This was one of the rare instances in which a man often stoic succumbed to tears. Richard Harrison encompassed more than merely his television appearances. He was married, had children, and was a grandfather. He was the foundation upon which his family relied in all of life's adversities. Richard wed Joanne in 1960, and she remained by his side for nearly 60 years. Joanne's family members were exceptionally close-knit. Her father served as a county judge before becoming the chief attorney for Philip Morris.